Take a big breath in, hold it, and breathe out. Now let's begin. You just use your respiratory system. It is a system in humans that is designed to extract oxygen from the air so we can use it in respiration around the body, and at the same time get rid of carbon dioxide gas into the air, which is the waste product from respiration. Let's follow a molecule of oxygen gas as it travels through the respiratory system. As you inhale, the molecule is drawn in through the mouth or the nose. It goes into the back of the throat where it enters a tube called the trachea. The trachea or windpipe has special rings of cartilage to keep it open at all times so you can breathe if you are lying down asleep or on a trampoline. The oxygen molecule now travels down the trachea and then will go into either the left or the right lung via a tube called the bronchus. This bronchus then splits into smaller tubes called bronchioles. And finally, the oxygen molecule will make its way into a tiny air sac called an alveolus. These alveoli are surrounded by tiny blood vessels called capillaries, and the oxygen molecule now passes across from the air into the blood via a process called diffusion. At the same time, a carbon dioxide molecule goes the other way, coming out of the blood and into the alveoli as you exhale. As you exhale, the carbon dioxide will take the journey back up the bronchioles, a bronchus, the trachea, and out of the mouth. This happens to millions of molecules with each breath, as you have about 300 million alveoli in each lung. On average, you breathe like this 12 to 16 times a minute. Why not count yours after this video? Unlike your digestive system, the respiratory system is a dead end. If something bad gets into your lungs, it's very hard to get it back out. As usual, the body has an answer to this. Look very closely at the cells lining the trachea and the bronchi. Some of them have tiny little hairs on them called cilia. And in between these cells are other cells called goblet cells that are secreting mucus. This mucus traps dirt, dust and bacteria before it enters the lungs. The cilia then waft this mucus up into the mouth where it can be swallowed to be killed by your stomach acid. There are many things that can go wrong with your lungs, such as asthma, pneumonia and diseases associated with smoking, such as emphysema and chronic bronchitis. However, if you have a problem, a doctor may perform a bronchoscopy. This is when they put a tube with a light and a camera on it into your airways and look for signs of inflammation or bleeding. Take a big breath in, hold it, and breathe out, and relax.
Ever wondered why you feel all stiff the day after doing lots of exercise? Well, this video will explain why, but first let's try a little experiment. Put your left hand as high above your head as you can, stretch your fingers towards the sky as far as you can, and then clench your fist as tight as you can. Now I want you to keep doing that throughout the whole of the video if you can. Stretch and clench, keep going. In order for you to contract your muscles, they need the energy that is released in respiration. However, when you are doing heavy exercise for a long time, the muscles can't always get the oxygen they need to carry out aerobic respiration. In this case, the muscle cells can switch to carry out another type of respiration called anaerobic respiration. This is respiration without oxygen. So why don't we just do this respiration all the time if we don't need oxygen? Then we don't need to bother breathing. Well, unfortunately, anaerobic respiration is not as good as aerobic. Firstly, it only produces a small amount of energy compared with aerobic respiration, and also it produces a nasty waste product called lactic acid. So, how is your arm feeling now? It's probably started to ache. The muscles in your forearm which control the fingers are now carrying out anaerobic respiration. After a while, the lactic acid will start to build up in the muscles and it causes pain. You can stop now if you like, or maybe carry on to the end of the video if you're as hard as nails. When you stop exercising, you will need to break down this lactic acid. To do this, the lactic acid needs to travel in the blood to the liver. Here, it is broken down using oxygen into carbon dioxide and water. After vigorous exercise, you may find you are still breathing very heavily for a time afterwards. This is to get the oxygen into the blood needed to break down the lactic acid. We say, after doing anaerobic respiration, that you're in oxygen debt, as you need to pay back the oxygen to the body. So to answer the question at the start of the video, why do you feel stiff after exercise? It's all to do with lactic acid. If you stop moving straight after exercise, then the blood does not return to the liver and the lactic acid stays in the muscles. This is what makes them stiff the next day. So it's very important to warm down after exercise with a gentle jog and stretching. Okay, you can really put your arm down now.
Respiration is just breathing, right? Wrong. Respiration is the chemical process that supplies the body with energy for all other life processes: growth and repair of cells, muscle contraction, protein synthesis, sending nerve impulses, absorbing molecules, and active transport, to name just a few. It happens in all living cells, not just animal cells, but also plant cells. There are two types of respiration: aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic means with air, and so needs oxygen, whereas anaerobic respiration doesn't need oxygen. Let's start by looking at aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration releases energy in cells by breaking down food substances whilst in the presence of oxygen. It is represented by this simplified equation. But don't forget the energy which is released. Glucose is broken down by oxygen to release the byproducts of carbon dioxide and water. Energy is released, which is then used to make a special energy molecule called ATP. ATP is how energy is stored for later use by the body. Aerobic respiration happens all the time in all cells, usually in the mitochondria. Animals get the oxygen needed from the air through their ventilation systems. Plants get their oxygen from the air through the stomata. Do you remember how photosynthesis works? Compare these two equations. You can hopefully see that aerobic respiration works in the opposite way to photosynthesis. Plants produce their food by photosynthesis and then through respiration release energy from it. But don't be confused. Whilst plants do release oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis, they don't necessarily take in this oxygen for respiration. They just take in any oxygen from the air. Plants respire throughout the day and night, as do animals, but they only photosynthesize during the day, when there is light available. So this is how aerobic, or with air, respiration works. You just need to remember that glucose is broken down in the presence of oxygen to release carbon dioxide, water, and energy. In the next video, we will have a look at anaerobic respiration and how it differs.